What is the Nation of Islam? I've been asked that question by at least 5 different people thus far, so we should answer it here, all right? It is really an American religious movement, all right? It is actually not a direct offshoot of Islam. This fellow, Wallace Fard, or W.D. Fard, as he's also known, we don't really know much about him. He's a very mysterious figure. But W.D. Fard began the Nation of Islam in 1930 in Detroit. Elijah Muhammad was his kind of second-hand person whom he was training. And then Fard disappeared in 1934. All right, he was probably deported. And then Elijah Muhammad declared that Fard had been divine. There's some people try to play this. Some people say that he declared that he was a divine messenger from God. Others say that he declared that he was divine. If he declared that he was divine, making Elijah Muhammad himself a prophet, a messenger from W.D. Fard. All right. Now, in terms of their impact, we saw that Malcolm X was originally from the Nation of Islam. He left for Sunni Islam in 1964 after he had traveled in the Middle East, after he had been on Hajj. He has a very moving account of his Hajj in which he realized while praying next to blonde-haired, blue-eyed Muslims that the basic doctrine of segregation, that is part and parcel of the Nation of Islam teaching, where the original human beings were the Shabazz, and that they were the blacks, and that from that the other races came, and that eventually the white man came as an evil offshoot that was the product of an experiment, and that the earth itself is something like 76 trillion years old, and that at one point the earth and the moon were one, and that they were separated from each other, and at one point all of the landmass of the earth was one, and then it was separated, and that's when people started, different races that started to come up. And this idea that there is ultimately 85% of the people are just being kind of led astray and being led by evil, manipulative forces, and that there is 15% that are true, and that would be the ones who do the Nation of Islam, and that there's 5% who actually kind of know what's going on and are there to help lead the others of those 15% who are actually kind of aware that there are these forces that are out there trying to manipulate them, and it's that 5% of which the 5%ers, to which John just referred, are then an offshoot later of the Nation of Islam. Now, the Nation of Islam, at its height, what's going on there? Had probably around 200,000 members. Now it has 40,000 to 50,000 estimated. It's centered in Chicago, but it arose originally in Detroit. Wallace Fard Muhammad is the 5th son of Elijah Muhammad, and he moved the Nation of Islam towards Sunni Islam in 1975. He was appointed as the leader after Elijah Muhammad, and he moved them towards Sunni Islam. And actually set up a lot of very good institutions. Like there's the Clara Muhammad schools, which really was the kind of the first Muslim schools in the United States of America that are named after his mother, that you can find around. For example, there's one in Atlanta. That's a really strong, kind of vibrant community. That's the only one I visited in person, so it's the only one I can speak for. But these are really, in a lot of ways, I would actually even say that one of the mistakes that has been made by immigrant communities in the United States has been to not go to the community, for example, of Wallace Fard Muhammad and learn from them about coping strategies for being Muslim in the United States of America. In fact, and I'll be quite honest with you, there is some very deep racism towards the African American Muslim community within the greater Muslim community. So, for example, and this is something that you have now, where a lot of children of immigrants who've grown up in the United States, and then they want to marry an African American, and the family just can't take it. It's actually a very bad problem. Sherman Jackson who is a notable American Muslim and works on Islam in America and the black community, has actually mentioned that this could be one of the great downfalls of the Muslim community in America, that if more of the racism that exists within that community becomes known more broadly, that they'll actually lose even more of the support that they have within America. And that's why, for example, Muslims in America should make Black Lives Matter their issue as well, because it really is a precarious situation. That the same attitudes that are coming out towards these communities are a manifestation of the same type of xenophobia that you have among some white Americans.
Are you suggesting that the Nation of Islam would embrace non-Black Muslims?
No, that's not going to happen. I'm talking about the community of Wallace Fard Muhammad, which is not the Nation of Islam, which is moved towards Sunni Islam, which repudiates the teachings of the Nation of Islam. Louis Farrakhan rejected the leadership of Wallace Fard Muhammad, and in 1977 reestablished the original Nation of Islam with the original teachings of Elijah Muhammad, and so kind of reasserted those particular teachings. So what I'm suggesting is that actually the community that Wallace Fard Muhammad established, and which is you can find in many of the major cities in the United States, will have mosques that associate with that community. That really was a community that is should be more embraced by the immigrants, especially because they found some important ways to work and be Muslim within the American context. Royal, and then there's something.
A few years ago, I was very curious about the Nation of Islam, and I actually went to a meeting in Oakland, actually. And I kind of knocked on the door, and they would not let me in. And then the guy opened the door as I was going away, and he said, "Wait a minute, what are you?" and then I knew he was asking about race, and so I said, "Oh, I'm Mexican," and he said, "Oh, well, you're welcome to join us." So I think it's non-white groups, but in there. They had some interesting comments that they were making about how they were pretty racist about white people, but not, they were racist, but how the white man is possessed by, but that a white man can exercise himself of this evil.
I'm glad to hear that.
I didn't ask.
I've been there for a long time.
Yes.
I'm not understanding what you meant by racism within African Americans.
No,
I get
the
what
Muslim
you mean.
community, not within so the NOI has a racism, but not the community of Wallace Fard Muhammad.
So I'm nitpicking. Why do you call it racism?
Which one? Of the NOI, or of the Muslims towards Black Muslims?
My understanding is that the Black Americans feel animosity toward Black American Muslims. Other non-Muslim Black Americans, no.
So what I'm saying is that immigrant communities of Muslims feel animosity towards Black American Muslims.
Immigrants.
Yeah, immigrant communities. They will actually refer to them by the term abid, which means slave. Slave. No, not in general. It's something that the community is dealing with, but it's important to know that divide still exists, and it's been kind of a problem for Islam in America. Yes? Huh?
How did it start?
It's just people bringing over attitudes, and look, a lot of it also has to do with the fact that some people come from communities where they never actually experienced dark-skinned people. You know, and then you come from so this was kind of an attitude that they accepted, and it also comes to do. You come to the United States of America, you see how these people are treated, and you start to adapt some of those attitudes. There are multiple reasons for it. Yes.
I think it's also important to know that in the evolution of the Nation of Islam, it was a political organization that was specifically aimed at Black nationalism and separatism, and so that is an inherent part of its fundamental structure.
Of its attitude towards whites,
right?
But now we're talking about the problems within the Muslim community towards.
And this is again, but specifically the Nation of Islam.
Yes.
Have you personally run into any bias, any prejudice against you being a white male?
Actually, to tell you quite the honest truth, the problem with being a white convert is that sometimes you're the token white convert. Yeah, it's like, whoa, a white guy embraced Islam. Yahya, have you experienced that?
I experienced both. So I grew up in the Bay Area, so I've been in all-black mosques where people, look at you funny. But I've also been the only person in a Pakistani masjid and everyone's saying hi to me. But I know that at least in the Bay Area, the kind of divide between the African-American community and a lot of the immigrant community, they've been bridging that.
Yeah, no, it's something that the communities are working on right now.
Yeah, so in the Bay Area, it's not as bad. If you live in New York or any other place in the country, it's pretty bad.
Yeah, in some places it's very bad, but there are groups that are actively working, and actually the Bay Area, like the Ta'leef Collective, is one of the places that's very active in that. I mean, it takes active community effort. Yes.
So this breakaway movement headed by his son has kept the name
Yes.
Nation of Islam.
No.
Oh, okay.
No, not at all.
What are they called?
Do they have a specific name? I mean, they tend to be said. People tend to identify them as the community of Wallace Fard Muhammad.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so he rejected the separatist.
Yes, he rejected the separatist teachings of Elijah Muhammad. Yeah, he rejected the theology of the Nation of Islam for the Sunni theology. Yes.
That's another quick comment. Most of the elder Muslims who were in the Nation of Islam, talk about white-haired Muslims, African American, but they're older. They are unbelievably kind.
Yeah.
To at least to me, in my experience. But it's the younger that have grown up in Sunni Islam, but have dealt with Oakland politics and those different types of things that have a kind of negative attitude towards you.
Was the decision in 1975 to move away from the Nation of Islam, was that because he rejected the initial principles of separation, or because he felt progress was made post-civil rights movement, where they were now in a position where they could reject those ideas?
I don't think that it was an issue of feeling that the progress had been made post the civil rights movement. I think it was actually a deep-held religious conviction that these were not the true teachings of Islam, and that the true teachings of Islam had to be more fully embraced. And I mean, you got to look at Wallace Fard Muhammad, and I mean, like Malcolm X, I mean, just an incredibly brave man to do what he did. I mean, he put it all on the line. He risked everything to do this, and did it effectively. Tens of thousands, if you count the generations, hundreds of thousands of people have to my mind, benefited from his courage. But really, I mean, to break away from his father's teachings, and especially with all of the way in which Malcolm X had been ostracized after his break with the community, it was an incredibly courageous move. And I think in many ways that Wallace Fard Muhammad, if you go through the history of Islam in America, is really really one of the most important figures and one of the most courageous figures.
Do you happen to know about the movement outside of the University of Chicago? Do you know in Hyde Park, do you know which way they went?
Oh, I think you're talking about the Louis Farrakhan movement, which is, Louis Farrakhan.
They moved with him.
Yeah, Louis Farrakhan in Chicago. He's based in Chicago. And so that's why we identify the Nation of Islam now with Chicago, because Louis Farrakhan, when he reestablished it, he did this in Chicago. Yeah. Now, one of the things to note about the Nation of Islam is that you have about as many people coming into the Nation of Islam as leaving the Nation of Islam to join Sunni Islam now. It's kind of a filtering process, you might say, because for a lot of inner city African Americans, it serves as a positive source of identity. It serves as a positive way to break away from the culture in which they find themselves in inner city communities, and then eventually a lot of people leave that to join what we would consider Orthodox Sunni Islam.